get outside of,
Yeah.
because you got to talk to random people all the time.
Exactly.
And you have to walk up, have conversations. Some of them might be uncomfortable. You got to, so, but yeah, cause that's what they kind of said. That's what they told me. Because I always thought you'd be good at admissions, but I don't think of it all like that. I
Yeah.
worked with you all the time. Well, I mean, I knew you, so you like there was never an issue with talking with me.
Right.
So
Exactly.
to me, I'm like, oh, he's like this all the time. So I didn't know you were kind of shy.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely had a show, and I still kind of do, I've I've opened up a lot more
Yeah, that's
with
what's
people
up.
that I don't know, so that's good. So how did you? Is this your first time in recovery?
My first time in recovery, yes, it's my first time in recovery.
Or? Okay. Okay.
But I've been clean before.
Okay. You want
Yeah,
to talk about that?
yeah. I mean, I was clean for 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I just didn't. I mean, it wasn't like recovery thing. I just didn't use.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
And so, how did you get introduced to recovery, and how did that look like before you got into recovery? How did your life look like before?
Oh,
Yeah.
it was a mess, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, my life was a mess. I was coaching youth basketball,
Mm-hmm.
and I was hiding a drug addiction,
Mm.
which it's crazy. I think back about it now. Like
Okay.
I used to like use definitely places I probably shouldn't have been using,
Yeah.
and then go and coach games. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, life was a mess, man.
Mm.
It was bad. It was a lot. Became really lonely, really depressed,
Mm.
and then I got introduced to treatment through an intervention.
Mm.
Yeah, the people. So my basketball program had ended up like it started. So I was coaching basketball for like about 6 years, 6 years,
Yeah.
and my basketball program ended up taking the name of an NBA player, and his family found out that I had been using.
Mm.
And when they found out, they basically had an intervention with me and pretty much was told me I couldn't coach anymore,
Mm.
and unless I went to treatment, I was gonna have to go to treatment. I had to have to get a certificate. I was gonna have to do some things to show that I was about recovery. You know what I mean? It's really about changing my life because I'm dealing with youth.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So yeah, so that's how they had an intervention for me and told me I need to go to treatment. And I thought, I didn't think I needed treatment.
Mm.
So it probably took me like another month to actually finally get into treatment.
Mm. Oh damn. And how did that low spot look like for you? Was there, if there was one, right, where you kind of looked around at your life and was like, damn, what these people were saying to me at this intervention, you kind of reflected on and was like, damn, like this is bad. This is
Yeah.
pretty bad.
So I'm glad you asked that because I actually remember. So I came back from the intervention and it was probably like 2 days later. The girl I was with at the time had actually started looking. I mean, she was very proactive,
Yeah.
and she started looking up a bunch of different treatment centers and all this different stuff. And I left that night for like 2 days, and I came back, and she had all this information, and I was like arguing with her about I didn't really want to do it. I didn't think I needed to do it. Um, and I remember I went. So my thing was I used to always like hide out in the garage or in the back patio and smoke, so like no one knew who I was. No one knew what I was doing. You know what I mean? Like if I'm out in the garage with my cigarette burning, no one can smell the dope. So I was out in the garage, and I remember sitting there and I was smoking, and I remember thinking to myself at the time like everything was really I was really reflecting on everything that was going on, and I remember sitting there and I started crying because I was like, man, I was like really wanted some help. I really did. And I started looking at where my life was at and like all the relationships I had with people and like the relationships with my family, my friends, like, and how bad they had all really gotten. And now my family and my closest friends all know. And those last couple of days, like, they were reaching out to me constantly, like, hey, are you going to go do this? Are you going to go do this? And I just wasn't answering anybody. So I had like 2 days of really not talking to anybody. And I remember sitting in that garage, like, in tears, just like kind of really wanting help, but I was extremely scared of help. I didn't know what help looked like at the time. And, at the time, like, that was very fearful. I lived in a lot of fear about it for sure.
Damn, man. Yeah, that's good, man. Like I love. Have you ever seen that movie with Chris Herron?
I don't know.
You should watch it, bro. Cause that movie kind of reminds me of you because he was a basketball player, and he hid his addiction for a long time. He used oxys, he used heroin and stuff. And there's a documentary about it, and it's extremely good, bro. And you should definitely watch it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's interesting just hearing people's stories, especially when they hide it from their family. You know, because it's like it's a whole different, you know, it's a whole different path of what I experienced at least. You know, and so what happened after that?
So I decided to come to treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I played, the treatment game that I'm gonna go. It's Friday night. I'll get through the weekend. I'll go Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that for about a couple weeks, where I was kind of like, I'll go this day, I'll go that day. I called up a treatment center. I actually called up the River Source, and the admissions guy there was, he hunted me down. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Like, him and my ex-girlfriend, they definitely played, worked together to kind of, I don't want to say trick me or trap me, but they got me to go. They eventually got me to go. And I came into treatment. So I went into treatment, and, it was, I remember when I first walked into treatment, I was extremely scared.
Mm-hmm.
And I was scared because, like, I didn't think I was an addict.
Right.
At all. Like, if you'd have asked me, 3 years ago if I was an addict, I would have told you no.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had this idea of what an addict looked like. An addict was a guy who slept under Tempe Town Lake Bridge.
Yeah.
He had mismatched shoes on.
Yep.
His hair wasn't done. He had a stick with a handkerchief with all his personal belongings in it. That was an addict. I didn't think an addict looked like somebody who had a job, or, who could, their clothes matched and combed their hair and wore cologne. Like, I didn't think that was an addict. Who took care of their kids. Like, that wasn't an addict to me. So I was extremely scared when I went there, because I thought, I'm going to go in this room and it's going to smell like shit. It's going to be a bunch of people who are dirty and filthy and homeless, and I'm going to have to try to learn something in here. And I was actually pleasantly surprised when I walked in and it was like normal people. You know what I mean? I remember I walked in and I was like, and I was, and I was an asshole when I first went to treatment. I was very quiet, didn't talk a lot, because I was just mad at, I was mad at the world, but I think more I was mad at myself. I was really upset with myself about it. Like, this is where your life is at now, Philip. It's sitting in a treatment center 9 hours a day, listening to everybody talk about their problems. And I didn't like that at first.
Yeah.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah, man, same here, man. Like, there was that misconception, and when I first went to not treatment, but when I first started going to meetings, like, I always made an exception for myself, and meaning that I would tell myself I wasn't an alcoholic or a drug addict because I didn't look like those people, right? Because I wasn't homeless yet, because I wasn't shooting up yet, so I always made that exception, like, oh, I'm not an alcoholic or I'm not a drug addict because I don't do this and that, but, like, the reality is that whenever I pick up, like, I just can't stop using it.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah,
I think that kept me out I know that kept me using for a long time. I mean, like I said, I had 7 years of not using. I don't call it recovery time because I wasn't doing anything. I just didn't use. And when I relapsed and picked back up, I remember thinking to myself constantly, like, I can stop anytime I want. I'm not an addict.
Yeah.
Like, I stopped for 7 years. And I would start hearing people when I'm out in the streets using, and someone would say, someone would talk about their drug problems and how they're an addict. And I'm like, oh, I'm not an addict. Like, I'm purposefully using right now. I'm going to go to work tomorrow. I'm going to go do my coaching thing. I'm going to go speak with my family tomorrow. But tonight I'm just using to have fun. And that continued for about a year and a half. And I just kept that same cycle. And then I remember near the end, like, I couldn't stop. And my sister actually said something to me one time where she was just like, Phil, the first time when you quit, you weren't emotionally attached to it. She's like, you're emotionally attached to the drug now. And it didn't set in at first, but after a while I started thinking about that, and it became, for me, using became about every emotion. It became about not feeling what I felt inside, and not knowing how to express my emotions to anybody. So I just used, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, it kept me out for a while. That whole thought of, like, I'm not an addict because I don't look like like Johnny over there. I'm not addict. I'm like Beth over here. You know, my clothes are clean, and I sleep in a bed, and I take a shower every day, and I brush my teeth and comb my hair. So I'm not an addict. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, I'm like, oh shit, maybe I am an addict. Like maybe I have a problem.
Yeah. Man, so how did the whole process with treatment look like for you?
Man, the treatment process was up and down.
Okay.
It was up and down. So I came into treatment, and I think was it November of 2021. I started treatment process, and you know I was doing the PHP, and then the plan was the IOP, but I wasn't like fully invested in treatment when I started. I was just kind of there. I was there to get a certificate so I could get back to coaching. That was it.
Yeah.
I didn't think I needed to be there, and I actually tried to do detox only. And they told me they didn't give a certificate for detox, which kind of sucked because I was like, hey, that's like 4 to 7 days. You know, I was a meth only. Yeah. So it was like go in there, sleep a night or two, get a certificate, go home. I could present it to everybody, I'd be good. Yeah. And when I asked them about that on the phone, they were just like, yeah, we don't give certificates for detox. So then, you know, obviously right away, I'm like, well, what's the quickest option to get through this? Because that was all I cared about, was just getting through this. So I did PHP, which is like 20 sessions and, you know, 5 days a week. And, you know, it's crazy because to get through my first 18 sessions, it took me 2 months. That's how invested I was in the treatment. I wasn't showing up. I wasn't doing stuff. I was lying all the time. Yeah. I was failing, you know, I don't know if I failed a UA because I guess, you know, I just didn't at the time.
Right.
But so when I went there, I thought I had a meth problem, so I still drank.
Oh, yeah.
I would still drink on like, you know, go in on Thursday, get drunk Thursday night, not show up Friday, then show up Monday. Yeah. You know, so I drink one day, get the drugs out of my system. Yeah, I had it all planned out. You know, all planned out. I found some loopholes in the system, and I started working those loopholes for myself. And you know, with 18 sessions down, 2 to go to get that certificate that I wanted. I relapsed hard on Christmas 2021. I relapsed really hard, and I went back out for about another month, and then I came back. When I came back that time, you know, treatment was. I started taking things a little more serious because you know they always talk about like it doesn't get better, it only gets worse, and that was my first experience of it doesn't get better, it only gets worse. Because some things had happened, you know, I'd gone through some stuff that was serious to me, and I had done some things that, you know, were serious to me. And I found myself back in similar situations, but now they really were worse. The consequences were worse. People were now ready to just turn their back on me and not talk to me anymore. Relationships were not looking good with anybody close to me anymore. So I came back to treatment, and I came back to do IOP because I was like 2 sessions from graduating from PHP. So they put me in IOP, and I remember I went to IOP, and probably one of the best decisions I made was 2 days in, I could not stop using. I was still using, and I told them I need to go to PHP because if I don't, I'm just going to leave and get high. And they were like, well, let's see what we can do. And an hour later, they came and got me at IOP and put me back in PHP. And that was probably the start for me making good decisions. Yeah. The start of me like listening to people around me and say, you know what, maybe I need more than I think I do. So I went to PHP, started things out, and the first like week was really good. Yeah. And then I had a relapse. And it was kind of crazy. Like this was like a pivotal moment for me in my recovery where I had a relapse. I came in, I took a UA. And when I did my UA, you know, I thought I got away with it. I really did. And I remember I went out to go leave again, and they told me I had to take another UA. And when I took that second UA, I noticed it was a different cup. Oh. So, you know, they do the cups with like the dips where they go like this. So the next cup was like the tight one with like the fucking chastity belt on it, and it's going away. Like that's going away to somebody. So they sent it off to the labs, and one of the workers there pulled me aside, and she kind of got in me a little bit and told me, Phil, I know what you're doing. You're only lying to yourself. You're not lying to me. And the next like 2 days, it's crazy. Like the next 2 days I was there, I didn't even talk to this girl. Like I walked right by her in the hallways. I was in my fucking feelings because I was more like, how dare you call me out for lying? Yeah. You know, like like how dare you come at me on my own bullshit? Exactly. Yeah. So probably like a week passed, And like I said, I had really started actually, going to meetings now. I was doing things. I was like, me and one of the guys I went through treatment with, we kind of became yes men together, where everyone said, hey, you want to go to this meeting? Sure, let's go. Hey, you want to go to this event? No, but sure, let's go. Hey, you gonna get a sponsor? No, but sure, I'll get one. So I started becoming a yes man to everything. And then a week had gone by, and I thought, I got away with it. I really did. I thought to myself, like, you know what, Phil? You're smarter than them.
Yeah.
Like you fooled everybody. And my therapist came and got me one day and was like, hey, I need to talk to you. And we're going around the corner, and she's like, oh, no, over here. And it was a clinical director's office. And I went in there, and I saw a piece of paper that said, amphetamines and methamphetamines highlighted. And I kind of broke down. I really did. I broke down that office. I guess I could say I kind of, to myself, not actually doing step work, but to myself, worked the first step for the first time myself.
Right.
I remember I sat there and I said, I can't control this. And I started crying. And I was mad at myself because everyone here is trying to help me. And like, they don't want anything from me. My whole life, everyone wanted to help me, wanted like money, sex, drugs, like what can I do for them? What can I do? It was always like a transactional relationship. And this relationship wasn't. And I'm letting these people down who truly care about me. And, so they told me I had to go to sober living. And if I wanted to stay in the program, like, you have to go to sober living if you want to stay here. And again, in my mind, I really still want the certificate. Like, I'm not going to lie. I was still like, I want this fucking certificate. Like, how hard is it to get? So I went outside, and I went outside for, like they told me to go smoke a cigarette and think about what I want to do. And I'll never forget, I lit a cigarette, and I walked down to the edge of the walkway. And for about 30 seconds on that walk, I was leaving. I was going to do what I've always done. The Motel 6 was right down the street. I could go down there, pick up. Within an hour or two, I'm back to running and gunning, doing what I've always done. And I got down to the edge of the street, and I said, you know what? Why don't you try something new this time? And I remember I thought to myself, like, here's everybody breaking their fucking back for you, and you can't even give it you won't even give it a shot. So I turned around and walked back, and I went in there, and I said, you know what? I'll try sober living. And I didn't want to go. At all. At all. I did not want to go to sober living. It just didn't, I've been in jail a lot, and sober living seemed like jail to me. And when I go to jail, I get in fights. When I go to jail, shit happens. I don't want to hear, a bunch of sweaty ass dudes living in a house together, and I got to share a bedroom with, I've heard you move into these sober livings, and you got the master right away. And I don't want to sleep with three other guys snoring and shit. I mean, I snore myself, so I know I'm not comfortable to sleep with either. So, but I went back, and I said I'll go to sober living. And from that day forward, man, I literally, like I said, I became a yes man. I decided I'm going to give this program a try. And I kind of did it out of ego. I was going to give it a try to show everybody it didn't work. Like, I'm going to show them, I'm going to get the sponsor, I'm going to work these steps, I'm going to go to meetings, I'm going to do all this stuff, I'm going to get a service commitment, I'm going to do all these things they tell me to do. And in a few months, the shit ain't going to work. I'm going to still want to get high, and I'm going to show them. And it's kind of crazy because that is not what happened. In a few months, like, you'd have to kill me to take my recovery. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, things change. But yeah, so the rest of the treatment process for me became good. I enjoyed it. You know what I mean? I really enjoyed treatment. Finished out PHP. There was a group of like 9 of us that were real strong together, and there's like 4 of us that still talk on a regular basis. All of us are, I know for sure the 4 of us out of the 9 are still, we're all coming up on 3 years. So, that relationships that we built and the community we built amongst ourselves has really helped each other. We're supportive of each other. We go to each other's family events if they have it, birthday parties. One of us pick up clean time. We're always there to support each other, even though I got to go to other fellowships for it. But it's we built a lot of good relationships. But I will say this: like, I remember going through IOP, and I would tell people I hit the IOP wall. I was about halfway through IOP, and now I've been in treatment for 3 months, and I'm like, I'm ready to go home. Like, I'm ready. I'm done. I'm in sober living. I got a sponsor. I'm, working steps. I'm doing all these things that I'm supposed to be doing, and I feel good. And I feel I'm wasting my time at IOP. And I never forget, I went to my sponsor and I told him all this. And I'm like, he's like, well, why do you want to stop? I said, well, because I need a job, and I feel like I got enough, and I don't think I need this, and I'm working steps. And he said, man, that's a lot of I statements. He was like, what are you doing? He's like, what are you bringing to the group? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, are you holding people accountable? Are you showing the new person that comes in the meeting, into the group, that it's okay to get vulnerable in there? Are you putting your arm around them and walking them around and showing them everything? And are you being a leader in there? And I was kind of like, well, not really. He said, well, I would say maybe you need to stay then. And how many times have you started something and never finished? And again, he goes, is this you wanting to finish because you want to quit because you've had enough and you're tired of it and you're done? He was like, but you gave your word you were going to do this. So finish the program out. And it was one of the best decisions I made. It really was. I was extremely happy that I stayed. You know, it's crazy. I got these certificates from the River Source, and like, I want to frame them and put them on my wall in my office in my office and be like, you know, like I'm a doctor, you know, but it's just the River Source plaques. Yeah. But there's something I became extremely proud of. You know, it was because, again, like my sponsor said, it was the first time I ever finished anything. I never finished it. Yeah. I was a great starter. Yeah. I could start a lot of things, but finishing them was always my problem. Right. Yeah. So it was my first time that I actually got to really kind of give myself a little pat on the back and say, hey, you finished something. Mm-hmm. And I showed myself like I can do something. And it gave me some self-worth, man. I was really, you know, I came into treatment like a lot of people, man. I wasn't on a winning streak. I didn't come there like, you know, my life's going really good. I want to go to treatment for a little bit. Yeah. No, it wasn't like that. It was, my life was shit. Everything I touched was shit. And it gave me actually a lot of strength and some hope that I could actually do something with my life different because I graduated. Yeah, yeah.
Man, that is awesome, dude. And like, it's even like I got to witness that shit, bro, and that's what makes me that's just what makes me grateful about this program. And you know, it's like we witness and experience change within ourselves and with like you see it with others, man. It's such a beautiful thing. You brought up a lot of good points as far as like, you know, starting to put yourself in uncomfortable situations in order to grow, and how impactful that is, man. And so, what does your recovery look like today?
Oh, yeah. So today, man, my recovery it looks, I guess honestly, I'd say simply, it looks like recovery. Yeah, yeah. Like I you know. So my clean date is February 19th, 2022. Mm-hmm. I'm coming up on, I think I have 2 months shy of 3 years. Yeah. My recovery today is a lot of meetings. You know, so my first year in recovery, I went to a meeting every day. I did actually a meeting every day for 370 days. And I don't say that to brag. I say that because that's what I needed. Right. I had to go to meetings every day, otherwise I was going to die. Mm-hmm. And they talk about making recovery the center of your world. So for me, that's what I did for my first year. I made it the center of my world, and I learned how to build the rest of my life around my recovery and my meetings. So today I still go to about 3 to 5 meetings a week. I work in an NA program. I have a sponsor in NA who has a sponsor in NA who has a sponsor in NA. I have sponsees. I think I have 6 sponsees, but I have like 3 that call. Yeah. One that's working. You know the whole thing, the story. And, I'm of service. Service for me has been probably the most important thing for my recovery. Like, awesome. I'm probably more service than I should at times. But yeah, I do a lot of service. I, chair meetings at my home group. I've been the GSR for a year. I'm on East Valley area H&I. I'm the newcomer liaison. Like, I do all these different service commitments. But probably the greatest service is really the sponsorship, to giving back, but yeah, man, so that's kind of what my recovery looks like. And obviously, most important is my connection with my higher power. When I came into recovery, I was not a God person. I had a lot of issues with God, and working my steps and staying connected to the fellowship, like, I've been able to build a relationship with the power greater than myself. And I think I love it. Like, I was talking yesterday to H&I, like, I love that that program is not religious and it's spiritual. If it was religious, I wouldn't be around. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if I could have stayed. But because it's just spiritual and it's my connection with a power greater than myself, and I get to create whatever that is, and give it the values that I want it to have, as long as it's loving and caring. I mean, then obviously I put some forgiveness in there and put all this other stuff in there that I would want something that's greater than me, that's helping me through my life, to have. and that connection has been huge, man, because I've never made good decisions. Like, I can look back in my life and say, well, maybe there I made a good decision, or maybe that one time I made a good decision. But my decisions led me to fucking treatment. Like, that's where my decisions led me. At the end of the day, like, when I worked my first step, I got to look at where all my decisions led me to. And I needed something else to help me with it now. You know what I mean? And like it talks in the third step, like, I really need to turn my will and my life over, because if I don't turn it over to a higher power, then I'm running it. And like I said, where I run it hasn't been good places. And I've turned my will and my life over, and it's been so amazing. Like, that connection's so amazing. Like, I have to start my day that way. Like, I have to start, even if it's not sitting down, putting my knees on the floor and praying like at an altar, a 30-minute drive in my car, and I can sit there and do some great prayer and meditation and just be by myself with the music off and connect with my higher power. And that's why I go to meetings too a lot, is because, so my higher power doesn't usually come down and say, Philip, this is what I want you to do. It doesn't do that. Like, it's just how it works for me. Maybe yours does or someone else's does, but mine doesn't do that. Mine usually works by, I'm at a meeting and another addict will share something and it'll be exactly what I needed to fucking hear. And I'll be like, oh, okay, I hear you, God. You know what I mean? That's how my higher power works. Or I'll go to a meeting and I'll share what I'm going through. And then another addict will come up to me after the meeting and say, hey, man, I've been through that. This helped me. And I may not do exactly what they say, but it gives me a lot of strength and a lot of hope and a lot of courage to continue to walk through whatever situation I'm in. And that's usually how my higher power works. And he speaks to me through my sponsor a lot. That's why I feel my higher power gave me the sponsor I needed. And we've connected on a way I've never connected with another man, which is crazy because when I first came in, I wanted a female sponsor. I was all about that. Like, like, give me the hot girl over there in the corner. Like, she'll sponsor me. I'll sponsor her. We'll have a good time. But I'm so glad that I have a male sponsor. You know what I mean? I'm so glad that I have that relationship with another man. 'Cause I never had that before. And for me, I always struggled with the father figure thing growing up. So, like, I have an older black gentleman who, it's at times somewhat of a father figure to me, and I need that. And my sponsor speaks through him, because when I go to him and I tell him the crazy shit that goes on in my head, because some crazy shit goes on in my head still, even clean, because as we know, it's not about the drugs, it's about me, my behaviors. Right. So I go through some crazy thoughts. I'll call him and say, hey man, like, I'm thinking about doing this. And he'd be like, are you stupid? Like, all right, you know what? Try that and see how it happens. He doesn't tell me like, you got to do this or you got to do that. He doesn't tell me that at all. Right. He just lets me know, hey, there's consequences. But if you want to try it, go touch the stove. Tell me if it's hot. Yeah. And when you come back with some arrows in your ass, I'll be right here. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man, those relationships, that's what my recovery is about, man. It's about staying connected, man, having a fellowship. Like I said, it's a few simple things to me on a daily basis. It's like meetings, sponsorship, higher power connections, being of service. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I have to do on a regular basis, and my fellowship. If I don't do those things, man, I'm not in a good place usually. Yeah. I'm not in a good place. Yeah. Like, because it's crazy, like, my disease will just instantly start creeping back in. Yeah. And I've been in recovery long enough now where it's like, I see my disease coming at me from a bunch of different areas, which is crazy, because when I first came here, I always, like we talked about a few minutes ago, I always thought it was the drugs. Like, I thought if I put the drugs down, then Philip will be just fine. And what I found out early on was putting the drugs down, Philip was not fine. Because the one thing that happens is I put the drugs down, and then I have these things called feelings and emotions that I've never felt before because I used the drugs. So I wasn't fine. I was fucking a maniac in my head. And if I'm a maniac in my head, I'm taking out everybody around me. So yeah, man, it's I've come to love recovery because it's helped me learn how to deal with that maniac inside my head. Yeah. And it's given me outlets and things to talk to and people to connect with and stuff like that. Like, so I don't have to pick up, and I can kind of quiet the maniac sometimes. Sometimes he gets out a little bit. He likes to have a little fun every now and then.
Yeah. Yeah, but if that didn't happen, then there would be no opportunity for growth.
100%.
Like then we would be perfect. And that's what I love about it too, man. It's like I always thought it was the drugs and alcohol, and then like I stepped into the room of Alcoholics Anonymous, and like the longer I stay sober, man, the more I realize that I'm truly sick, and everything is directly correlated to whether I'm spiritually, in my opinion, it's correlated to whether I'm spiritually connected or not, or connected to my fellows or not, right? the way I think about myself, the way my relationships look, the way I think about others, how my fears look, right? Like a couple of days of me not doing the things that I know help me, and my head starts talking to me, and it's dark, it gets dark real quick.
Hey, for sure, for sure. If it's weird because like 2 days ago, so me and my sponsors, I have 3 gratitude lists I'm in.
Yeah.
I have me and my sponsees. We have a group chat that we all put our gratitudes in together. I have one with a friend I went through treatment with, and I have one with my sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually try to start my day, and I try to get those out right away because I like to be in gratitude, and that's a normal thing for me. I get in gratitude, do some prayer and some meditation, and I had a couple days ago I missed a day. And it was so weird. It's so weird because I missed one day of connecting with my higher power in the morning and being in gratitude in the morning. And by 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm feeling that shit.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there like, why am I mad?
Yeah.
Like, I'm all upset. Like, they brought the pizza to us for we're doing tours at work, and they brought the pizza and they're 2 pizzas short. And I'm like ready to choke the delivery pizza guy. Like, I'm just all upset about everything. Like, why am I feeling this way? And it's crazy because I can look back and say, it's because of how I started my day. I didn't connect with my higher power. I didn't start my day in gratitude. Instead, I started my day, and that for me is it's a reminder because I can't be in what I want to do. I started my day doing whatever Philip wanted to do. I got up, hung out for a little bit, and went to work, and didn't do anything else. And I'm living in my own will right now, and that's how I feel because I didn't start my day with saying, to my higher power. For me, I do a lot of the third step prayer from Narcotics Anonymous, and it's a lot of take my will in my life and guide me in my recovery. And I didn't start my day that way. I didn't do my sponsor has a thing we do where it talks about, we say 3 things to we say basically 3 things to ourselves, like, I will be a part of my recovery. I will love me more than anybody else can today. And I can't remember what the 3rd thing was, but it's something else. But we say to each other, and I didn't write those things down. So I'm not starting my day like getting this self-love, connecting with my higher power, giving my will over to start my day. Instead, I was running in my own will right away. But the cool thing about it is I noticed it, and I said, ooh, let me go take a break really quick. And I went to my office, and I sat there, and I did the things I needed to do. But yeah, man, without my higher power connection, man, it's a crazy world out there, to say the least. It's a crazy world out there.
It really is, man. It really is. And I'm so glad I have it, man, because it's not, just like you said, it's not just about sobriety, man. Like, it helps me in every single aspect of my life. I have a tool for how to get through life. And I have faith that that's going to work because it has so far, right? And then whenever it hasn't, it was me thinking that I had a better idea, of what I needed, right? But God always has a better idea, man. And that's what I miss out on whenever I try to insert my will. Is I miss out on God's will, and God's will is infinitely greater than anything that I can think of. Because whenever He blesses me, I look back and I'm like, damn, I didn't think that could go that way.
No, 100%. Hey, so 100%. And God's will sometimes is like, I don't know, man. Sometimes it's like pulling out my fucking hair because I'm the master of wanting instant gratification. That's what I want. I want what I want. It's like J.G. Wentworth. It's my money and I want it now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, when you're having faith in your higher power and you're trusting in what God's will for you in your life is, like, it can be a struggle at times because, God doesn't always work instantly. And usually He doesn't work instantly. And it doesn't look like what you may have wanted it to be. But what I've learned in my experience over the last, 2 years and 10 months is it is always what's better for me. It may not be what I want. You know what I mean? Like the car I drive. I'm not driving a fucking $300,000 car.
Right. Yeah.
But my car gets me from A to B. It works. It's been running for almost 3 years now without any major upkeep. But if I have that $300,000 car, I probably have already had to have 4 or 5 things fixed on it already. And for me, like, that's how God's will is. Like, it may not be exactly what I want, but it's usually what I needed. And if I really look back, it's what was best for me. And that's what's always hard to see. And for me, it's hard for me to see that in the moment. Because in the moment, I don't see, well, maybe things aren't really good right now, or maybe things are a little harder than I expected right now. But if I give it some time, that actually may be better for me. because I don't like the time. I want that instant gratification. I want to fix. I want it today.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's I still struggle with that sometimes with God's will, because it won't happen right away. And I'll start to get like, well, maybe if I control this little lever over here, or maybe if I do turn this little knob right here, shit will be a little different, or it'll work perfectly for me. And I gotta, remind myself, hold on, Phil, step back. You've given it, come this far. My sponsor always says, you have a higher power and he's brought you this far. Do you think he's going to abandon you now? And, so I have to remember that sometimes. But yeah, man, it's hard. It's hard. It's tough sometimes, because God's will is, sometimes it's a lot of patience.
Yeah.
It's a lot of patience.
Yeah.
But again, like we said, it usually works out way better than I ever could have imagined.
Right.
So just like when I got clean, like I told you, I just wanted a certificate. That's all I ever wanted was a certificate. Yeah. And I was trying to rush and get the certificate so much that when I stepped the fuck back and just waited, that certificate didn't really, honestly, at the end of the day, it didn't matter, because I never went back to coaching.
Yeah. I
wanted the certificate to go back to the things I wanted to do.
Right. Yeah.
And today, people ask me to coach all the time, and I say no, because it's just not my life anymore. And I don't feel that's where God has led me now. He's led me down this other path that has been better than I could have ever imagined. Better. I mean, my life today is, people say it all the time, and I thought it was super corny when I first heard it, like, my life is better than I could have ever imagined it would have been. I'd have been selling myself short. But it's so true. It's so true. Like, all I wanted was to get back to coaching kids again, being in hot, sweaty gyms, missing out on my family half the time, like doing all these things that really didn't serve anybody but myself. And today I spend tons of time with my family. I get to be there for my kids. Like, when my kids call, they know I show up. I don't miss any of their functions. And my life is better. And am I helping kids? Nope. I'm helping other addicts who are in recovery. Like, it's same. I'm still coaching it in some sense, but it's a different field. And it's like, it's more fulfilling for me. You know what I mean? So like, I'm extremely grateful that God's will is better than mine. Like, I'm extremely grateful, because like, it's like the corny saying said, I would have sold myself short if I'd have got what I wanted.
That's so true, man. That is so true. How has working in recovery been?
Working in recovery's been good. I'll say this, it's actually funny you asked that, because the other day a client said to me, Phil, does working in recovery help you stay clean? And there's some parts of it that do.
Right.
Like, obviously recovery can't be working in recovery is not my recovery. Right. That's not it. I have to do my own recovery outside of that. But working in recovery, what it gets at for me is like, one, when you're at a detox and you see people come in those first days, I'm like, I don't ever want to be there again. Yeah. I remember that. The other thing too is, and it's, I don't know, maybe I'm sick and that's why I think of this, but the madness. So when I see a client who just can't get over their own willpower, and I see them and I just watch them and they're just continuing to fuck up the shit that's going on around them, and they relapse and they come back and then they're still doing the same thing and they want the control, that helps me stay clean, because I'm like, I remember that madness. Like, I remember everything drove me crazy and everything was just magnified times 1,000. Every situation was just like, oh my goodness, the world's coming to an end. And, I didn't have any sereneness back then. So like, that stuff does help with my recovery. But I truly enjoy working in treatment. Like, for me, it's the best job I could ever have had. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I like being with addicts who are fresh in, ground zero, basically, being a part of their recovery, and honestly, really, they're being a part of mine. Like, they probably help me more than they know, and probably more than I help them. But like, I truly enjoy being in recovery. And my job, I'm the alumni coordinator, so like, I'm the one that helps build fellowship. And it's crazy because like, so when I got asked to do this position, it was a no-brainer almost for me. Something I never thought I would do. Never. And when I was in treatment, I was like, I remember the clinical director was like, Phil, you should come work here when you get 6 months. And I laughed at him. I'm never working fucking here. What are you talking about? Like, that's not happening. Yeah. But the biggest part for me in my recovery that changed was, so when I first went through recovery, I walked in the rooms and everyone's, doing the group checks. Like, hey, what's your phone number? We want to add you to the group message. And I was like, man, fuck you guys. I'm not doing no group message. But the last time when I relapsed, I remember crying on the floor because I had no one to call. Not a single soul. So when I came back, I said, that's not happening again. And I started getting numbers. I started getting involved in group messages, and I started building relationships. And all of a sudden, I started making these friends and all this stuff. And the community, I started noticing that this thing that it's crazy because they come in, that people with clean time come and tell you like, hey, get a fellowship, get people around you, and you're like, I don't need what they have. I don't need the fellowship. I don't need all that. But I ended up building the fellowship, and I've seen how the anchor. I've seen how important the parts it had played in my life. I've seen how important it was to me, and so when they came to me and asked me to do this job, it was a no-brainer because I think that the community is extremely important. There's that TED talk that talks about the opposite of addiction is connection. So connection is extremely important, and connection with other people and the community is extremely important in recovery because you need other people like us. Like when I played basketball, who did I hang out with? Other basketball players. If I played football, who I hang out with? Other football players. If I play guitar, I hang out with other people that are in bands. So if I'm in recovery, I need other people in recovery. So like this job for me has been amazing because I get to can help other people, stay connected. I get to throw events, and it's a lot of fun. To be honest with you, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I get paid for it. So I can't complain about that. But yeah, I truly enjoy working in recovery. I don't think there's any other job for me. Not, maybe I'm wrong again. Maybe something else happens. I don't know. But right now, I'm glad that my higher power has placed me in this position at this place where I'm at this time in my life. And, hopefully I get to stay a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
No, that's awesome, man. Yeah, and you talked about something that really hit home for me is, or that I can relate to is keeping the recovery separate, right? And so when I was working in the recovery field, I told myself that I wouldn't be that guy, right? That makes his job his recovery, and sure enough, that happened, and like I wasn't able to keep them separate. But thank God I noticed it, right? Because it was easy for me at least to fall into that trap where it's like, oh, well, I did recovery all day, so I don't want to go to the meeting, or. And that being said, what's been the biggest struggle so far in your journey?
As far as recovery?
In recovery and in general.
Oh man, the biggest struggle I have right now for me is really, I've been going through this court cases for my kids for a long time, since I came into treatment. I've been going through court cases to get custody of my youngest son and get more custody of my two older kids. And
is that all the kids you have?
I have 4 boys.
Okay.
4 boys. My oldest boy, he's 19. He's in college. He's a United States Marine. So I see him all the time. There's no court or anything for that. He comes here and comes back and forth as he wants. We have a great relationship. We talk on a pretty regular basis. But my younger 3, just getting more custody of them. Right. So that has been a journey. Let's just say that. And this is where the higher power, the recovery, like trusting in God's will has been the biggest struggle for me in my life. Okay. Because I heard a speaker one time talk about being a father, and it took this guy like 5 or 6 years to get his kids back. And what he said was, he was talking about how like he has to understand that however long it took, it's in God's plan. If he's trusting in God, it's in God's plan. And I can't just trust in God's plan when it works out for me, when it's good. So I've had to come to the understanding that maybe I'm not fully ready to be the father I think I am. And that's hard to swallow. That's a hard pill to swallow when you think about it that way, because if I believe, like I talked about, God's put me in the perfect situation with work and gave me a good car to drive and give me all these other things in my life that are working wonderful and I'm prospering from and everything's great, then I can't look over in the bad situation and say, well, God's letting me down. I have to believe in that situation that God is doing what's best for not just me, but for my children. And maybe I'm not fully ready to be the father I want to be, even though I believe I am. But how many times did I believe something was going on with me that I thought I knew how to do, or that I was a shit over here, or I was the best to do that, or I could do this, and the shit didn't work out. So that's been my biggest struggle, is because at times I wanted to just yell and cuss at God and say, why are you keeping my kids from me? But one, I have to remember I'm in this situation because of me. My drug issues and my addiction has got me into the situation. And 2, God will put my kids back in my life when I'm ready for them. And as much as I think I'm ready, maybe I'm not really fully ready for them. So that's literally been the hardest thing for me to get through in my recovery, because it's a constant battle. And there's like, you'll win I don't want to say win a court date, but the court date over here will go really well this time, and then the next time you're all excited, like, yes, everything's looking good, and then something that doesn't look so good for you happens over here, and you're like, fucking hey, like, so it's like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah.
But things are coming to a close here soon. Within the next year, I'll have some sort of resolution on the situation.
Right.
I'll at least know like what's going on, what kind of how much custody I'm getting, stuff like that. So, and one of my sons is, my youngest son he's about to be 4. So there's still a lot of time in his life. And then my older ones are 15 and 16 15 and 16. So, there's still time, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So it's just, again, that's the biggest struggle. I'm glad you asked that, because that is the biggest struggle I have is the kid stuff, you know what I mean? Being a parent, because for me, when I got clean, like I got clean obviously for other reasons, and then I got clean for, part of it was my kids, and now I stay clean, and part of it's my kids, and I don't stay clean because of them. I stay clean for myself, but they are motivating factors at times, that's for sure. My kids have kept me clean on a Saturday afternoon before, that's for sure. I've looked at them as like, I don't want to stay clean for me anymore, so I'll use you today, because I know if I stay clean, I won't get to spend any more time with you.
Yeah.
But it's been just hard at times to like deal with the kid stuff, because as a parent, you just want to be there. And you got clean, you're like, well, I'm clean now, man. I'm coming up on 3 years. Shouldn't everybody trust me by now? But they just don't.
Yeah.
They just don't. And the court system takes a while, so I have to stick the course out. But you know what? I stay clean. My kids have seen the example I've set. My older 2 boys, I take them to meetings with me. They're around my recovery. And I'm just going to be prepared and ready so that when my youngest son is a part of my life fully, I will be ready for him. When I get more time with my older kids, I will be ready for that. And I believe that'll happen when God knows I'm ready for that to happen.
Right, exactly.
So but that's been the struggle.
Man, dude, thank you so much for sharing that. I know that's, not an easy thing to go through or even talk about, right? So I just want to thank you for, I want to thank you for talking about that, man, because, right, like, also another misconception is we think, at least I thought that whenever I got sober that life was going to be perfect, right? Or life was going to change, and no, like, it still stays the same, right? Like, I still have all these problems, and even having the solution, it's hard to fall back on that solution, just like you said, right? Like, even though I know that trusting God essentially is the answer to all my problems, it's hard to do that sometimes, especially when it's not looking so promising.
Yeah, 100%. That is trusting, having faith in your higher power and trusting Him when life is not going the way you want it to is tough sometimes. Because we get clean and we're like, well, I'm clean now. But what I've learned for me, like, getting clean helps me learn to deal with life on life's terms. So, because those problems are still going to happen. I tell people all the time when they're in treatment, and I tell them, like, when you get out of here, don't think because you get out of here, life's going to say, hey, you know what, Philip? You spent 30 days in treatment. You've been in detox. Like, we're just going to give you a break. No, life's fucking life, and it shows up. And it's going to do the shit that life does, which is uncomfortable shit sometimes. And we have to have that trust and that faith in our higher power and get the fuck out of our own ways. You know what I mean? And when it's not going the way we want it, we have to still say, you know what? This may not be what I wanted, but I trust that you're going to give me what I need.
Exactly.
And that's all I can do. The cool thing I've learned is that my higher power along the way has given me a lot of little examples, and then, early on, of how things can work if I just keep trusting them. And then the big one comes, a big example, and something great. You're like, oh my goodness, this is so, you know what I mean? And I need those, because what happens is like I said, like with the kids or other shit happens where you don't get what you want. And then you have to still say, okay, Lord, okay, God, whatever you want, I understand. This isn't what I wanted, but I'm trusting you. It's going to work out better. And then, so yeah.
Yeah, no, man, it's a struggle for sure. That's why I always like asking that question.
Yeah.
Because it's just the dead truth, man, and I want people to know that too. Like, it's not an easy thing, and it's beautiful for sure, but it's not an easy thing, what's been the biggest? We'll end with this question, man. What is the biggest inspiration that you've received throughout your journey?
Oh man, there's the biggest. I don't know. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. Yeah. So I think one of them you hit on earlier. Watching an addict grow, like one of the greatest gifts I've ever received is watching another addict who you've seen from the floor of a Motel 6, and now they're working and have have their families back in their lives, and they're fucking got a car and like all these, they have a place to live, and you're like, the program has worked in their lives, and you see it. You listen to them talk from day one when they were like, I'm a victim and that poor me and everyone's after me, to now being like, hey, it is what it is, and you see the growth. Like that's definitely one of the biggest. That's definitely been a huge inspiration for me. Because I mean, our boy Santana, like, I picked this motherfucker up at Motel 6 with all his belongings.
Yeah.
And to see him, he shared the other week, and to see him share the other week, like, it's emotional.
Yeah.
Because you see the growth, and you're like, oh my goodness, look at how far this person has come. Especially someone so young. The other thing, too, is like my relationship with my children. My relationship with my kids have grown tremendously. And not like we hug and like every day and it's like that, but it's like the things that they talk to me about and the way they come to me for communication is something that I've never had before with them. And I have an older son who we didn't have that same kind of relationship. We have it more now, but we didn't have that kind of relationship. But my 2 teenage boys now, man, the relationship we had over the last 3 years, and honestly, like my older 3 boys have all told me they're proud of me. And that's a huge inspiration.
Yeah.
I never thought my oldest son, my 19-year-old, probably like a year ago, I think, he was out here and he just out of nowhere was like, Dad, I just want you to know I'm proud of you. And I was like, I was almost in tears.
Yeah.
Because, and I never thought that him saying that to me would make me feel that way. But it did, And it definitely helps drive me to continue to stay clean. Because it's just like, addiction's a family disease. And we pass it on from generation to generation to generation. But the cool thing about it is we have a chance, we can break the cycle. And that's what recovery gives us, a chance to break that cycle. And my 3 older kids have unfortunately seen their dad in active addiction. But I do have a younger son who's never seen me in active addiction. And I have a chance now to break that cycle with him. But also the 3 kids who have seen me now have seen the change in me. And have seen me go from where I was at, smoking in the garage all the time, never being around, never being present, to now like, probably even annoyingly, like, Dad's always here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, what do you want to do? Where you want to go? You want to talk? You want to hang out? You want to do a puzzle? Like, you want to play chess? You want to do something? You know what I mean? So they're like, Dad, I just want to be I just want to be in the room, play video games by myself. You know what I mean? But like, they've seen that change.
Yeah.
And that's what's been the best part. That's such a driving factor for me, because I get a chance to show them you don't have to be an addict in our family, that we can change and we can do differently.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll be honest, part of it too is like, my kids are scared of drugs, which is good, because they go into meetings and they hear all these stories and they're like, I'm never doing that, Dad. Like my son once told me, he's like, Dad, I'm never, this fentanyl stuff is crazy. And he's like, Dad, some kid at school offered me fentanyl and I'm never doing that.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? Which is a different topic, but it's just good to hear that, because they're submerged in my recovery and they see that. And they're like, I don't want to live a life like that. So those are definitely driving factors for me, man. Those are probably the major 2. The children, and then seeing other addicts go through this has been just something that I don't know, I enjoy a lot.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, because a couple years ago, I didn't give a fuck about nobody else.
Yeah.
So if someone had said, hey, Phil, in 3 years you're going to be doing a podcast and talking about how one of the greatest motivating factors for you is watching other people, I'd be like, man, you're a fucking liar. What the fuck are you talking about? I don't care about nobody else.
Yeah.
But today it's like, I care about other people before me. You know what I mean? And not a way to hurt me, or not a way that's like negative to my life, but in a way that's just like positive for my life. Because when I see other people grow, man, it just gives me so much joy and hope, and it makes me smile, and I'm just like, these feelings I never felt before just pop up, and I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome, man. And that hit home too as well, because right, like I didn't come. I mean, I have a couple of family members that are drug addicts too, man, and unfortunately, one of them is going through it right now, man, and I'm seeing it first-handedly, right? And for the first time in my life, I've been on the other side of it, and I've seen how much my addiction affected people when I was in it, right? And so the same way now with my recovery, I want it to affect everybody else around me now in a positive way, right? And so that's huge. That's huge, man. And it's definitely something to look up to. You know, what is there anything that you feel that we missed out that maybe you wanted to talk about or something?
I don't know about missed out, but I mean, we talked about a lot.
Yeah.
But I would just say, like, you know, for me, recovery's. People always say recovery's hard. I don't really know how hard it is. I know it's uncomfortable, but you know, they say it's a simple program for complicated people. You know, because to me, it's not that hard to pick a phone up.
Right.
I did it all the time to call the dope man.
Yeah.
It's not that hard to write stuff down. You know, I wrote the dope man's number down all the time. That was quick and easy for me. It's just uncomfortable getting vulnerable. But for me, like, you know, it's crazy because vulnerability has been like the topic the last like day and a half in my life, and it's such an important part of this process. You know, so like, if anyone's listening, you know, anybody out here listening to this or gonna hear this, like, you know, being vulnerable is extremely important. I can't work my steps without vulnerability. I just can't. I can't have any real change without vulnerability. I can't connect with people without vulnerability. I need to be vulnerable because when I go to a meeting or when I talk to another addict and I get vulnerable, there's an instant connection right there with that person. Instant. Because I understand you because I've been through similar stuff. And even if not the same situation, the same feeling. Because situations that you've been through and situations I've been through may be different, but our feelings were the same. You know, we all came to the rooms different. We all got to the rooms different avenues. But we felt the same when we got there, which was lonely, isolated, depressed, you know, guilt, shame, remorse. We felt all these same feelings, just got there differently. And I need that vulnerability so that we can connect more, so we can identify, you know what I mean? So like vulnerability to me has been, like I said, it's been the last thing the last freaking like 90 hours. It's been same thing I've been hearing over and over again, this vulnerability. But it's such an important part of this process. So, you know, if you're scared, like, it's okay. I've been scared. I've been there. We've all been scared. But there's some real growth in walking through, like you said, walking through those fears, getting vulnerable. Work some steps, man. Like, I don't know. I remember when I tried it, when I started working steps, I was like, but what about step 4 and step 5 and step 8 and step 9? And my sponsor said, well, the good thing is you're only on step 1. So don't worry about those other steps. Worry about step 1. Do step 1 and see how you feel. And for me, man, when I did step 1, I needed step 2 because I needed that void filled inside of me. Because when you do work in step 1, there's that void now. You know what I mean? And honestly, for me, I kind of feel like good shit. You know what I mean? I was like, God damn, Phil, you fucked your whole life up. Yeah. You know? But now now I need step 2 to fill that void to get on to step 3. You know what I mean? And that's what so I always tell people, like, work on step 1. Don't worry about the other ones. Don't make amends right away. You're not ready for those. I don't care no one cares that you're 6 days clean. Yeah. How many times have you been 6 days clean and told everyone sorry and fucked them all over again? Yeah. So why are you worried about that shit now? Work on step 1 and then see what step 2 looks like after that. So that's about all I got.
That's great, man. That's great. Yeah, it's funny how you brought up like vulnerability because I talk about that all the time. Like it's so important, man. Especially because now we're here for the newcomer. Like we're here to serve the newcomer, man, and I need to get vulnerable so they can relate because that's, you know, once they relate, like that's that stepping stone that it's attraction rather than promotion.
100%.
Like, oh, they're talking about this pain that I feel, right? And that's so relatable, and so that attracts people if they're an addict or an alcoholic, and also how that's been like the topic the past couple of days. It's so funny how that happens.
Yeah, it is.
There's always like a different thing going on in your life, you know, and it's awesome, bro. It's awesome.
Yeah, when that stuff happens to me, it just reminds me. To me, I'm just riding along with my higher power where I'm supposed to be at.
Yeah, exactly.
And it just kind of gives me a smile inside. I'm like, okay, because I know I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be at. Yeah. Which is something my sponsor says to me sometimes. I fucking hate that shit. When I'll come up with like this crazy shit going on like this and this and that, and he'll look at me like, well, Phil, you're exactly where you're supposed to be at.
Yeah.
Man, fuck you.
Yeah. It's fun, bro.
For sure.
No, but thank you, bro. I really appreciate you doing this, man. Like, seriously.
Thank you for having me, man. This is it's a privilege.